Hello, everybody, and welcome to another My Music. I'm Graham Cafe. In a minute, I'm going to be speaking to Jame here. But first, we're going to watch yet again the wonderful video that's been provided to us by the amazing people at Analog Trash. Now, if you haven't seen this before, it's going to be a feast for your eyes. If you have several times, then by now you should have understand what's going on. And you can then go and check the wonderful Analog Trash out at their website, the details of which are listed below. Do go and see them. But here's the video.
Keep on, don't stop. Keep on, don't stop. Keep on, don't stop. Keep on, don't stop.
Jame, thanks for joining me for My
Absolutely.
Music. How are you doing? Where are you coming from?
I am in Columbia, South Carolina in the United States.
What's it like there? Because I've never been.
Right now, it's actually characteristically cool here because it's late May, and usually by late May it gets really hot and humid. But today was exceptionally cool. It was like 58 degrees Fahrenheit, so it's very nice. And then I live in the capital city of the state, which also has one of the largest universities. So we have our fair share of things going on in the city.
Is that where you've always lived, in that sort of area, or have you traveled a bit?
I've traveled a bit. I've lived mostly in the Southeast, although I did have some stints in Colorado and Oregon, but I've grown up primarily in the Southeast. This is the longest I've lived anywhere, is in Columbia, South Carolina.
Yeah. Has the Southeast influenced your music tastes over the years?
I mean, I was a huge REM fanboy when they were coming up because I felt they were like me. I was like, oh, we have similar backgrounds and that type of thing. So I felt that. But I think overall, interestingly enough, my music, especially what I'm doing now, was primarily influenced through sources that were coming into the Southeast that were not Southeastern. So for instance, when MTV first arrived and I was able to watch MTV, the majority of those videos at the time were from bands outside the United States, at least, half of them. And that's really what influenced me. And so there became this dichotomy of like where I lived and what I was immersed in physically versus the music that interested me and style and culture and things like that.
Yeah, I was going to say there's quite a lot of English sound in your sound.
Absolutely.
What was it about the bands from over here that really kind of grabbed your heartstrings?
Yeah, it's interesting. I wish I could put my finger on it. I think one of the things that's always appealed to me, and I'm sure you may be like this and there are many others like this, but like, I don't know why, but I was always attracted to the things that were not the norm, that were not the normal, that were not the everyday, that were not the most popular. And it wasn't something I willfully did. I just gravitated towards them. And, and so I think, I thought when, watching Duran Duran videos, I was like, these guys are the most stylish people I've seen. And you would never see anyone in South Carolina dressing like Duran Duran, but I was like, this is great. This is where it's at, and I don't know why. Just kind of, I guess how my brain functioned. That's what attracted me.
Yeah, who doesn't want a boat, right?
Right.
Who doesn't want a boat laden with lovely ladies and hanging off it around the world? Well,
that's right.
Fantastic. Well, sound-wise, though, obviously, I think you can hear your influences in terms of some of the darker sounding music of indie music of the UK. Was it something to do with almost the kind of that kind of punk ethic that went with that as well that appealed to you? Or
Yeah, no doubt. That's a really, really good point. I grew up liking the early things that we've talked about with, on on MTV and the things that were coming out of the UK at that point. And then as I got older, I was introduced by friends into stateside punk rock, hardcore punk rock music. And so kind of like the second era of punk music, it wasn't the Ramones, it wasn't the Sex Pistols, it was bands like Minor Threat and Bad Religion and Black Flag. Those bands, it was another situation where that was introduced to me, and I immediately was drawn to it. Like, this is fascinating. This is everything I want out of music and culture and style, and even attitude and perspective. And so kind of what I've said over the course of time with my music is inevitably all these different elements that have been added to my music encyclopedia innately come out in what I do. And so I think it kind of fascinates me, because then you do get weird things like a Duran Duran kind of song with a lot more angst than they would put into their songs. And so I think that's where the newness of things that we do kind of really manifests itself as kind of those interesting combinations.
I love that. I definitely, listening through to your album on Bandcamp, I can't pin you down, which is great.
That's probably
that's a compliment.
That's what I was gonna say. That's probably one of the better compliments that in my opinion a musician could receive. And the nice thing about it, quite honestly, is I don't really aspire. I don't push myself to make sure that's the case. It just happens because, again, of what I've grown up knowing and how I've mixed it all together. It's like, here's what you get. Yeah. And it's an interesting combo,
You can hear your influences. You can hear like the way that if you listen to like the first couple of tracks on the album, you can go, oh, there's the way that the bass interplays with the guitar there, that's really quite Cure-ish. And then it's like, oh, hang on a minute, though, as you say, this next song is really quite a uplifting pop song, but it's not, because you've enshrouded it in something darker, a little
twisted. And to that point, the other major advantage I have going for me is that my band, the musicians who play with me, are the same way. They've built up this entire music library, and a lot of it is similar to mine, but some of it's not. And so you'll get even more intricate combinations of things, say, like, as you said, the guitarist and the bass, kind of the interplay there. It could, sometimes it could hit on something that we all are familiar with, but sometimes the bass player may bring one thing and the guitarist brings something else, and the way it interplays becomes something very new.
Yeah. What's your approach in terms of writing? Where do you tend to start?
Yeah, I'm not the guy who sits down and says, okay, today I'm going to spend an hour writing a song. Here I go. Okay. It's definitely in kind of manic phases where I have a concept around lyrics or a concept around something from a song structure that I want to attempt. And it's something that resonates with me. It's kind of one of those things you think about as you're doing things throughout the day, maybe over several days, maybe over several weeks. And then at a certain point, it manifests itself within me where it's like, okay, I'm sitting down. I think I've got this figured out, and I'll go into it, and I'll design the song structure, and I'll use something remediary like, GarageBand or something to get some drum tracks down, get some guitars a bit. And I'm working pretty frantically. It's not clean, it's kind of, it gets the idea across, but it's not ready for anyone. And then and depending on if I've come with the song structure first or the lyrical idea first, depends on kind of how I back into the rest of creating the song. But I love to take, I capture all types of lines out of books and conversations and turns of phrase and all types of things like that. And I capture them all. And so when I get to the point of lyrics, well, many times I like to, part of the most rewarding thing for me is going through all of those lines and taking things that probably were pulled together from disparate sources, but intertwining them into something that then now sounds cohesive and like almost like a story. But I know that it came from all these disparate sources. So anyway, I get to the point where I get that song completely recorded as a very rudimentary wireframe, and I send it out to the band, and I'm like, here's a new one. Let's give this a go. And they bring all of their expertise. I mean, they're all expert musicians, and they have been in bands, and they have that music encyclopedia. So they bring all of that to the table, and then in our practices we workshop those songs. And sometimes they change a little bit, sometimes they change dramatically, and I also always tell them, after we've worked through a song several times, I'll say, is this a keeper? Because if it's not, I don't want us to burn our time on it. And fortunately, I'm typically pretty lucky, and they're like, no, let's keep working on this one.
Yeah. Tell people what the name of the album is, because I think it's a brilliant title.
Thank you. It's called Once Do It With Feeling.
You see, now that's brilliant, because it kind of sounds like it should be something else, but you're saying a lot in that, and it kind of reminds me of I don't know whether you've read it, but have you read the Christian Hirsch book, Don't Suck, Don't Die?
I haven't.
No,
that's a good recommendation though,
because it's really, for me, that's a title that says you can either choose to do something just for the sake of it, which is right. Something that I struggle with clients all day long on social media, on a social media, and I talk to clients about that and say, look, the problem with most people out there is that actually they spend their whole time trying to create content to fill this void, right. But the problem that actually that's not what they should be doing. What they should be doing is actually doing stuff that matters, right? And then they've got the content. So everything's the wrong way around. We live in a really awful society at the moment, in a way.
It's like backwards. It's like backwards. Yeah, I get it.
Where actually the important stuff should be that what you should be talking about, and the important stuff is what do I want to see happen in the world? What am I going to do? What am I here for? What's my purpose? And if people just got on with their purpose, etc., there'd be loads of great content to talk about. But most people are just trying to fill the hole and go, well, look, I'll talk about it, but I'm never going to do it.
Yeah. I mean, you hit on something that struck me, and I found that it resonates with what we do, in that everything I do it to the best of my ability, whether it's crafting a song, preparing artwork for any type of release or any kind of promotion, down to our stage presence. I'm very, very clear about that. And that when we play a show, my expectation is that we are performing. We are creating something that is worth someone's time to come in, pay money, and watch us do, and that they come away impacted in some way.
Right.
It frustrates me, honestly, sometimes when bands that appear to me to be completely cast off in terms of their appearance, their performance, their approach to everything, getting more fanfare than bands like ours that put every ounce of energy we have into making it, something that can be immersive and meaningful. So I know exactly what you're talking about, especially from the music perspective.
Yeah. Put some effort in.
Absolutely. That's right. And if you don't, you've got no one to blame but yourself,
Yeah. Why is it that society accepts that, do you think? Why do you think do you think we've become lazy in our appreciation of a lot of things.
Well, I don't know if I can speak to that, but I do think that there's something that's always been around, and I think it's even gotten more prevalent, is that, you know, the herd mentality, I know is a dangerous thing, where if the right people don't like something, then you're not going to gravitate. People aren't going to gravitate towards it. But as soon as someone feels like, oh, this is safe, I can like this, then it seems to attract a lot more people. So I do think that, you know, and I do think that waters down what ends up bubbling to the top, you know. I think that
goes back to where you discovered your music in the first place, where you said that you liked all the things that perhaps you shouldn't like, that's right. You know, and I think a load of us did. I think I still do.
That's right. Of course, it never goes away.
I don't know. I don't think it does go away. I think people have become quite blind to choice and to trying hard with things. I've talked a few times on this show about learning to listen. I think, you know, like a lot of things these days, learning to listen to music is a skill that unfortunately a lot of people have lost. Mm-hmm. Where I really think that, and I'm not saying everybody, look, that's probably, if you're listening to this, I'm preaching to the converted, all right?
Right.
Yeah, but I do think, you know, I used to spend hours listening to stuff that I didn't actually get at first. Right. But
I get it. Yeah.
I want in a way that kind of drove me to listen to it even more, because I was thinking, why do I not get this in the first instance? And maybe I need to get it. So therefore it's something about me that's not open enough to it. Yeah. I spoke one of the first one of these I ever did. I spoke about getting when I think it was about 11 years old. I went on holiday with my parents to the south of France, and I won a disco dancing competition for Radio Luxembourg, and I was presented with 2 records, my friend. One of which was Pierre Ubu, New Picnic Time, and the second one was a single of the Flying Lizards. And I'd never heard anything like this. I mean, New Picnic Time starts with this song where this guy's just squealing, and the guitar's just mashed up all over the place or whatever, you know. And when you're used to, like, I guess I was listening, you know, at school we would have been listening to things like Howard Jones and Culture Club and whatever else. But this thing came, you know, and I was like, this is so alien. But yet it had a draw to it, you know, and over time I just kept going back to it. And then suddenly it's like, I love this, I love this, you know. Do you find yourself like that with music?
Absolutely. I was thinking as you were talking about my time, especially when I was in Denver, Colorado, I had that exact kind of experience with jazz. I looked at jazz and I was like, this is a whole microcosm of music that I know very little about. And I had dipped my toe into the jazz world here and there, and I kind of didn't quite get it. But I made it a point to get to do some research to figure out what's heralded as like the jazz that you know when you're listening to it, that you're kind of universally everyone agrees this is good jazz. This is the classics. Listen to this. So I started Coltrane, whatever. Right. So I started there. And just like you said, over the course of time, I began to get it, and then I began to like it, and then I became obsessed with it, and I would seek out more obscure jazz and fringe jazz, you know, and then go to find, you know, jazz performances that were exciting to see. And so I know exactly what you're talking about for sure.
Yeah. No, it's lovely when that happens. You know, you start off with kind of blue and stuff like that with Coltrane, with Miles Davis, and then it's like
Right.
no, Bitches Brew and
Right.
a different corner,
Yes.
a different corner,
right.
and all of the stuff that was like that's harder
right.
to get into, but it's great.
And when I got over to Eric Dolphy and Out of Lunch, that's where I was like, whoa. I was looking back and like, wow, I've come a long way. And that's not
I
even
love
as far
that.
as we go. Oh yeah, absolutely.
I really love that kind of progression. Now, one of the things I was going to say when I listened to the album as well is, given the fact that it's not all one kind of sound, as it were,
Right.
throughout. There's not a prevailing from start to finish. There's not a prevailing sort of mood. It's not like an album like Disintegration or whatever, where it's kind of there right from the start, and it's there all the way through. It does. It's kind of lilts up and then lilts down, and but it flows really well. Did you have to try really hard to get it to flow so well?
What's interesting is, and thank you for that, but I was as fascinated as you are about that, because I worked very closely with a friend and engineer of mine, John Furr, who we talked for a long time about recording something that would become a full-length record, and I wanted him to actually be producer as well. So I gave him a demo or live recording of everything I had, and I said, "You pick which ones you want to record," and he did that, and then and we may have recorded a couple others as well to have just on the table.
Yeah.
And then he actually was instrumental in the sequencing. I may have had some say about, well, this has to go here and this has to go here, but to a large degree, I owe that, both of those things, the selection of the songs and the sequencing, to John. He's outstanding. And when I went back, I was kind of like you. I was like, it kind of all works. How did you do this?
Yeah, that's a skill, actually, isn't it?
Absolutely.
That is an absolute skill. Sometimes, the amount of times I've heard stories about a producer just having that amazing talent to just go, this is gonna, that has to segue out of this, and it just does. That's a joy for a musician to hear that back. I bet the first time you listened to the whole thing back, you were like, oh yes.
Yeah, I'm my own worst critic. So in anything, videos we make or records we make or anything like that, I usually give it maybe a pass or two. I mean, inevitably you listen to it a ton of times during the process and all of that. But once it gets out the door, I give it maybe one pass, and I'm like, okay, I don't want to do that again. I don't want to listen to that again, because it just, and there's a lot of them. There's a ton of emotional weight in those songs. So for me, it strikes me in a very, very, I would expect, different way than some other casual listeners, Now
you've got a single from the album, Another Kiss, and you have got a video for that as well.
Yep, that's right.
And the video strongly centers around snapshots, memories.
That's right.
What's your take on photographs these days? Because again, we've come to a pretty weird situation with photographs, really, in that everybody takes photographs by the million these days. Right. But we're not keeping any of them. We're not doing anything with them.
That's a really that's a really what's the word? That's a bit of an open nerve topic for me, because I have some obsessive tendencies about trying to capture time, and that's why I made that video. And I knew the moment we did Another Kiss and it came out the way it did, that I wanted that treatment for that song in video.
Yeah.
I think, I have some fairly, I'll call them existential perspectives on life, and as part of that, I think I, in all my subtle ways, am constantly trying to stop time or at least capture everything that's happening. And if for no other reason, because I want to be able, my memory's horrible, and I want to be able to look back at these pictures and go, oh yeah, that we did that, or I experienced that, or whatever. And at this point, because of the digital capabilities, I take more pictures than ever because it makes me feel like I'm capturing more and more of that moment. So I'll be able, despite not having a good memory of it, to go back and like extract memories that's, you know, that still do exist somewhere about it. So yeah, I have a obsessive tendency with that type of thing. And I think that's probably, now that you've mentioned it, that's probably part of why that video wound up being the treatment that it was, you know.
It's one of the reasons why, and I polled it on this. I do polls all the time, by the way. That's one of my things on social media.
Oh, nice. Uh-huh.
I've done on LinkedIn, which is my main platform. I've done a poll every day without fail for the last 3.5 years.
Wow.
I polled on Twitter about the kind of experience of where you buy physical music, and why, one of the reasons why I think people buying physical music again, i.e. CDs, vinyl, tapes, etc., is making a, thank God, a comeback, is because, do you remember, the thing is, when you think about it, when you think about the memories of obtaining that music, you and I can probably go, right, that CD or that vinyl, I bought it in that shop. And then suddenly it's like you're transported back to like, yeah, so why was I there? I was there because, you know, I was dating a girl who went in, you know, we were going out, and that was where she lived, and that was the record shop that was down the road, and I've never been there since, but I was there for the day, and I just got off the bus, and it's suddenly, because it was a tangible thing from a tangible place, it brings back all of those memories. And I just think maybe that's why it's all coming back. I like to think so anyway. Maybe that's my sentimental viewpoint.
I mean, I get it. No, I definitely get it. And, you know, for me, there was something lost when that started to fade away, when we first kind of transitioned to digital music. Because I was the guy, just like watching the videos on MTV, I would get the artifacts and I would pore over them. I would look at every nuance of what the band members were wearing. I would read every note in the liner notes. I would question the titles of the songs. You know, I would look at the vinyl and look at the, you know, sometimes the inner groove etchings that you can do before it's pressed. I would look
Did you
for,
even get into
the
like
little
genealogy of stuff as well? Like, they were in that band, and then that,
absolutely.
That
that's how I found. That's how you find other great bands. Oh,
right.
Well, he was in this band first. Well, let me go check that band out, and you may end up liking that band even more. It's fantastic.
I think that's absolutely essential, and I do believe that is why, to some extent, it's coming back. I'd love to think that, you know, humankind. I think we learned some lessons in COVID. I think we learned some lessons when everything stopped about the importance of things that are actually real and physical. And I think it kind of, I think we were so immersed, because the only way that we could connect for a while was digitally. I think we were so immersed in that I think it made us kind of question just how great that experience is. And you know, isn't it so much better when we actually get together?
Yeah, right. Yeah, there's that social aspect. And actually, you know, a lot of the time that I spent, and these two thoughts were unrelated until we kind of went from the artifact topic into the COVID topic. But I actually spent a lot of my time in quarantine archiving things that I had. and I don't, at the time it felt like it was just, well, I'm at home, I've got to do something. But in hindsight, maybe it was a little bit of a reaction to what you're describing, where things had changed so dramatically. I felt like there was a need to start, getting everything archived and getting everything in order. I don't know, it's some type of record. I don't know.
Yeah.
Perhaps.
What do you hope people will take away from the record? I mean, that's a really big question, I know, because it's like, I think most artists will hope that people bring their own experience and their own life to it, and it becomes whatever it becomes for people. But in a way, if you could feel that like something that you're saying in there does pervade over, what would that be?
I don't know that there's a single overarching emotion. Like we talked about, there are a variety of different emotions being conveyed on that record. But what I would say is, as with all of my art, my whole goal in general is that they come away and they realize and they go, wow, I was emotionally impacted by that collection of songs. Like, doesn't have to ruin your day, doesn't have to make you have the best day ever, but like to just come away and go, what this band did and put down on vinyl or tape or whatever, that now I can come receive, has triggered things emotionally in me, because I think
made me feel a bit.
That's right, because that's in my opinion, that is the whole reason for art, is to capture the human emotion, convey it back, or to even impact emotion in ways that people don't expect,
Yeah. And maybe as well, partly kind of explain things for us that nothing else can explain. That's
it, no doubt.
I think that's a massive part of it. Well, listen, I love it. Love your album.
Thank you.
So
thanks very much.
Thanks for doing it. Thanks for making it. How long did it take from start to finish then?
Oh, wow. It was a very long process. We actually started recording towards the tail end of COVID, and it just came out in October of 2022.
Wow.
I'm as I've mentioned, obsessive about a number of things. And I typically mention that I feel like musicians are either primarily recording musicians who love to go into the studio, or live musicians. And I love playing live for a number of reasons. But one of the reasons that studio recording and studio work is such drudgery for me is because I know it's a record of something that will be marked in time, and I don't want to screw it up, and so I'm so obsessive. I'm pretty sure I drove John Furr, who engineered it for me and produced it. I'm pretty sure I drove him insane. But I'll never be able to repay him for the amount of patience he had with me. But yeah,
we should tag him in on the interview. We should tag him in, and
well,
maybe he can let you know.
Have him on without me, so he'll speak frankly about the situation. He'd probably be nice if I were on. He'd be like, "Yeah, no, it wasn't a big deal."
Candidly, let us know. Listen, it's been an absolute pleasure meeting you and talking to you today. Just let people know, if they haven't found you yet, where to find it. I mean, I obviously, Bandcamp is where you can go and listen to it. Is that the best place for people to go?
Yeah, I mean, I like Bandcamp, and all of our work is out there. We're also on all of the mainstream streaming, Apple Music, Spotify, and all of those, and links out to a number of our formats like YouTube and Twitter and Instagram, and everywhere we're present is on our website, which is candycoffins.com. But yeah, the good news is if you search Candy Coffins in quotes, you're gonna find us, which is great.
But there is let's just tell people that as much as it might be fun to stream this on said dot in the corner of the room, Jame, because he's very fastidious about how he does things, has produced a lovely physical version of this. So if you actually want to pour over that yourself and discover just what effort, blood, sweat, and tears he's put into it. Do go and buy one.
Thanks, Graham. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and
that,
just like I used to pour over the liner notes to find all the secrets on those. I may have put a couple secrets in our liner notes and our designs as well. So
there you go. You see, so you're missing out. You're only getting half the experience. That's the way I look at it. If you stream it, do that as well. But do go and buy a copy. We'll put the links into all of that when we've uploaded all of this, and it's all out there. For anyone that's been watching, this has been Jame Lathren, and you've been watching My Music. I hope you've enjoyed it. We'll be back tomorrow with more My Musics. Until then, do share this with your friends, because the more people that get access, the more people know about this music, right? And you never know, it could be your favorite piece of music ever. You just might be missing out. So until next time, bye from there.